Hi everyone! Today I want to show you another spectacular win of Grandmaster Constantin Lupulescu over Grandmaster Sergei Movsesian from Armenia. This game was played in GAMMA Reykjavik Open from 2019 round 5. It was a very interesting game because Constantin took the initiative, attacked with every move by going forward into enemy camp, made contact between pieces, exchanged pawns in front of Black King, delivered the knockout blow, and Black had to resign. Black mistakes were to underestimate White threats and lost. Let's see the game. Constantin started with e4, Black replied with c5, and we have the Sicilian, knight to f3, e6, opening the diagonal of the dark square bishop, d4, c takes on d4, knight takes on d4, and knight to c6. White continue with knight to c3, e6, controlling b5 square, and this is the Paulsen Variation. In this position, Constantin can continue his development with bishop to f4, bishop to e2, or bishop to e3, but in the game he took on c6 because he wanted to play bishop to d3, and in this case the knight from d4 would have been unprotected. So after knight takes on c6, b takes on c6, Black took with the b pawn and created an isolated pawn on a6, but he opened the b file, and also his light square bishop can be developed on b7 square. White continue with bishop to d3, and next is castle. Black continue with d5, attacking White center, and White play short castle, knight to f6, queen to f3. Moving the queen in an opening is the last thing to do. Better was to continue the development of his dark square bishop to g5. White idea with this move is to play queen to g3, attacking g7 pawn, but Black will defend this pawn easily after he will castle. Black continue with bishop to e7, queen to g3, short castle, and White developed his last minor piece with bishop to a6, and he is threatening mate on g7. Black defended this with knight to e8, and here White has to move his bishop, otherwise he's losing it. In this position we can see that White finished his opening while Black has almost all his pieces on the 8th rank. So in the game we had bishop to f4, bishop to h4 attacking the queen, queen to f3, bishop to g5, and in this middle game position White's targets are the isolated pawn from a6, the backward pawn from c6, the weak square from a5, b6, c6, c5, d6, and e5. For e5 square, Black has the option to play f6, protecting this weak square, but in the same time he'll create a weak pawn on e6. So White should focus his attention in attacking and occupying these weaknesses. In the game, White continued with knight to f4, looking to jump to c5 weak square, and Black took on f4. White recapture, knight to f6. In this position, White has no direct attack, so he needs to bring his least active pieces into the game, and for this he can play rook f to e1 and rook a to d1. Instead, in the game he played b3, and with this move he is forming a wall of pawns on the b file, not allowing Black any counter attack. Black can continue with rook to e8, intending to play e5. Another interesting way for Black was to play e5 directly, sacrificing a pawn temporarily in order to activate his pieces. So after e5, White takes this pawn, rook to e8, attacking the queen, queen to g3, d takes on e4, Black recovers the pawn, bishop to e2, queen to d2, Black queen invades on the 2nd rank, attacking the bishop and the pawn, knight to b6, rook to a7, bishop to c4, bishop to f5, queen to e3, trying to exchange queens, queen to a5, h3, and position is equal. All Black pieces are active, So you see how important it is to sacrifice a pawn for activity. In the game, rook to e8 was played, and white played e5, kicking the knight away, knight to d7, and we see that black position is cramped. So 2 moves ago, playing e5 was a better alternative in order to activate his pieces. White played rook a to e1, bringing the least active piece into the center since there is no action on the queen side. White will lift the rook to a3 and then to h3, starting a direct attack on black king. The game continued with queen to e7, rook to e3, bishop to b7. Finally, black connected his rooks, and white continued with rook to h3, f5, closing the bishop diagonal, but white doesn't want this, so he took en passant, knight takes on f6, queen to h4, attacking h7 for a third time, and black pushed h6. This move stops white attack but creates light square weaknesses around black king, and black would love to have his light square bishop around his king. As we know, the bishop is the best defender of weak squares. Instead of this move h3, black cannot play queen to a3, going after white pawns because he's mated. After bishop takes, knight takes, queen takes, king to f8, rook to g3, queen to e3, queen to h8, check, king to f7, and queen takes on g7 mate. Better option for black would have been to play g6 instead of h6, and after the move played in the game, white can attack black rook with bishop to g6, but Constantin decided to bring more pieces into the game, and he continued with rook to e1, e5, intending to play e4, shutting the bishop, and for this white continued with bishop to g6, attacking the rook, rook to f8, and here white found the best attacking move, rook h to e3, attacking e5 pawn, forcing black to push the pawn, and he's placing another pawn on the light squares, and we can see that his light square bishop has a function of a pawn. White continue with f3, taking the advantage of the pin, bishop to c8, moving the bishop on a better diagonal. White took on e4, queen to a7, pinning the rook, h3, bishop to e6, intending to recapture on d5 with the bishop, and white should continue to go forward in black camp. And a good move is to push e5 to kick the knight away. Instead, white play king to h1, getting out of the pin. Let's try to calculate e5 move and try to understand if this move was possible or not. Instead of king to h1, e5, knight to h7, bishop takes check, king takes on a7, queen to b4, intending to go to d6 or c5, exchanging queens. Black prevented the infiltration on d6, queen to c5, queens were exchanged, bishop to c8, e6, forking the rooks, rook d to e8, e7, rook to f7, knight to e6, bishop takes, rook takes. White is attacking black weak pawns, king to g8, rook takes, rook takes, rook takes on e7, rook takes on e7, king to f2, d4, rook to c8, check, king to f7, rook to c4, attacking the pawn, rook to d7, king to e2, rook to d6, king to d3, and white will take black pawn, and with 2 extra pawns he will win. So playing e5 in the original position was a good option. Let's go to the game continuation, where white played king to h1, black continued with d4, attacking the rook. Better for black was to try to neutralize opponent pieces from his territory, and a good move for this was to play bishop to f7, trying to exchange the bishops, rook to f3, knight to s7, looking to exchange a pair of rooks, but white went back with bishop to f5, bishop takes, rook takes on f5, and if black takes on f5, he will fix white pawn structure, and white will have a pawn majority on the king side. Black continue with knight to g5, looking at e4 pawn, and white has no attacking moves here, so he started to bring his knight into the game, and he played knight to b2, looking to go to d3 and then look at e5 and f4 squares. Black took on f5, and with this move black improved white pawn structure. Rook to f8, attacking the pawn, rook to e5 defending, rook to f7, attacking the rook, and here the rook goes forward, attacking the queen, queen to c5, looking at the rook and at the pawn from c2, and here Constantin went forward with f6, making contact between pawns, defending the rook, and in this position black took on c2, and this is the decisive mistake because he moved away a piece from the king defense. Better for black was to take on f6, but even so he's losing. For example, after g takes, queen to g5, exchanging queens. Now let's take with the knight, h4, knight to a7, rook to c7, attacking the pawn, rook to f6, knight to d3, and after knight to b4, attacking both pawns, white is winning. In the game, black took the pawn from c2 with queen takes on c2, and white took on on g7, destroying black defense. This is one of the steps when you attack, to exchange pawns in front of opponent king. After this move, the rook moved away to d8, but this is a blunder because white goes forward with the queen to f6, looking to take on f7. Black went to g5, and after h4, kicking the knight, black had to resign. Black has many tries in this position, but all lead to disaster. If he moves the knight to h7, he's mated on f7. If he plays queen to d2, defending the knight, white will take, queen takes, queen to e6 check, king to a7, and g8 queen mate. Another option is to check white king with queen to c1, king to h2, queen to c5, knight to c4, rook to b8, h takes, on g5 queen takes, queen to e6 check, we have the same line, king to a7 and g8 mate. So there is no escape for black. In this game we saw Constantin having the initiative. He attacked with every move, he went forward into enemy camp, making contact between pieces, exchanged pawns in front of black king, and black had to resign in the end. And as we saw, black mistakes was to underestimate white threats that lead to disaster for him. In the end, Constantin managed to win the Reykjavik Open with 7 points out of 9, and he gained 15 elo points. Congratulations to Constantin, and I wish him good luck in the next tournaments. So this was the game between Constantin Lupulescu and Sergei Movsesian from Armenia. I hope you found this video useful. Please watch other games from my channel and leave some comments and suggestions in the comment section. See you next time. Bye.